Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to the stream. For those of you that are tuning in live, make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, get involved in the comments as well. We like to interact with you guys. And yeah, yesterday it was a disappointing day for Chelsea. Created enough chances to win that game several times over, but a familiar story rearing its head again. Just a lack of clinical finishing in front of goal, which has cost us the 3 points. Obviously, we stayed top of the table by 1 point, but that gap is now very, very small, and we can't really afford too many more slip-ups like that as we head into a packed Christmas period. Obviously, we've got Watford next on Wednesday before a busy December schedule. But yeah, guys, we're going to go through some match reaction, some player ratings, and joining me as always is George. George, thanks for coming as always, mate. And we're delighted to be again joined by Theo from the Shed End podcast. So thanks for coming along, lads. Theo, I'm going to start with you, mate. You were at the game yesterday, obviously. Going to the game, I think a sense of optimism for a lot of Chelsea fans that despite our poor record against United in recent years, I think 1 win in 9, the FA Cup semi-final a couple seasons ago, that this was the time that we were going to kind of notch up a much-needed win against them. But for whatever reason, something just seems to happen. It doesn't matter if it's Carrick in charge, it doesn't matter who's in charge, could be some bloke from the street. They always somehow manage to get something against us. I mean, was there a sense of disappointment leaving the ground yesterday?
Big disappointment. Yeah, it literally felt like 2 points dropped leaving Stamford Bridge. Even though we managed to get an equaliser, it was still extremely disappointing. And as you said, it seems like we can't really post, the Fergie dynasty. We haven't really been as clinical as we would have liked against, what is quite a weak Manchester United side. I thought it was, a big costly mistake. We squandered too many chances. Very similar to the Burnley game, we dominated the ball. We had, 15 corners, I think it was. So we were creating chances, but the end product just wasn't there. I was relatively happy with the lineup. I would have maybe liked to see the changes happen a bit earlier, particularly Pulisic, who came on and, brought a lot of energy to the game. We could maybe thank Carrick for not starting Ronaldo, because had he started, it would have maybe been, more favourable towards United. But frankly, United offered nothing. Absolutely nothing, which makes it even more disappointed that we dropped points in the game. And as you said, going into the busy Christmas period, it would have really been good to win this game and increase the gap on Liverpool, Manchester City and those teams. But now they've closed the gap with 2 wins for them.
George, are you surprised? Any surprises for you in the starting lineup? Sorry, obviously the midfield two, Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek. That was obviously circumstantial. We had to pick that two. Sound against was never going to play with the injuries to Kovacic and Kante. Marcus Alonso at left wing back. Were you surprised he was given the nod over Aspie, or that's pretty straightforward decision, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't mind Alonso, and I thought actually he had quite a good game yesterday. Certainly the deliveries from the corners were threatening, and he pushed on. Didn't have too much to do, obviously. None of the defenders did for the game. No real surprises. I know that some were circumstantial. Obviously, I'm sure you'll get onto it in a minute about Timo Verna playing that 9 role, and yeah, that I agree with Theo that I was frustrated that the changes didn't come sooner. I think they were clear that, for me, certainly Werner, Loftus-Cheek and Hakim Ziyech just weren't up to it yesterday. I think I saw enough after about 50 minutes to say that at least one of those players needed to come off. But yeah, Thomas Tuchel in his press conference seemed fairly happy, and I think I know we're frustrated because it's 2 points dropped because, at home you should be winning those big games and need to in such a tight title race season. But sometimes there's not a lot else you can do. I mean, we battered them possession-wise, created so many chances. They offered nothing, countered from a mistake from one player. You can't excuse it. You can't blame Jorginho for that. And after that, what can you say? We just didn't put the ball in the net after the penalty. So we did everything we could. I mean, the stats were so one-sided. So I think we've got to, despite being angry at the time, we've got to cool down a little bit.
I mean, George, staying with you for a second, mate. Are you surprised at how negatively Man United set up? It's literally like they come in a team bus and they brought all the other buses from Manchester down with them as well and just parked them in the penalty area. They literally offered absolutely nothing. I don't know if you, obviously, you probably might not have seen it, but obviously they showed the positional map for the players from the first half. Average positions on the entire Man United team was inside their own half. I mean, they literally came to get a draw and perhaps nick a goal through a mistake, which is exactly what they did. Man United sides of the past wouldn't have done this at all. But George, is this kind of indicative of where United are right now and how low their stock kind of is at the moment?
Yeah, but I think you're playing one of the best sides in form, if not the best side in form at the moment, away from home. So I wasn't particularly surprised at the way they set up. They've got frightening players on the counter-attack with the pace. And I mean, to be fair, the goal comes really. I mean, the only thing that you could probably give United credit for is the two do press him very, very quickly to put Jorginho under a little bit of pressure to make that touch. If they just leave it, the ball to go high in the air and just don't press it, Jorginho can afford to make a mistake and still get away with it. So I think credit to Carrick there. They had to stop leaking goals, and they've done that by not conceding from open play yesterday. And if you're coming to the champions of Europe, I think with Chelsea have done it plenty of times. We've gone to difficult places and just played 10 men behind the ball and got something, and they won't care. I think they'll see that as a point gained and something to build on. Whereas we'll be incredibly frustrated with that, considering, like you said, I think they had the fewest touches in the first half in the box in any football match for something like 10 years. I think the stat was something like that. So that ridiculous. Never seen something so one-sided. But football, at the highest level, and to be fair, they could have scored again, couldn't they? When Fred had an unbelievable opportunity from Mendy's pass, so they could have snatched it. I'm not going to lie.
Well, we're just lucky that fell to Fred and not one of their more attacking players that had fallen to Ronaldo or something. We could have been sitting here today discussing a defeat. But I mean, Theo, are you surprised? I was slightly surprised in regard to the Jorginho mistake. He was the only one back. I mean, normally you see maybe a couple of players, sometimes maybe even three, but generally normally two, staying back to counteract something like what did happening. I was a bit not shocked, but I was slightly alarmed that from a couple of corners, they were almost straight in on goal in that second half. And are you surprised why we left only one player back?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I refused to watch the highlights last night, but I rewatched them today. And I actually, looking back, I was so surprised how high we were up at the pitch. Maybe because we were looking for that goal. We thought we could press Manchester United. But I expected at least one of the three centre-backs, whether that be Chalobah, Thiago Silva, or Rudiger, to sit back there and, defend at least around the halfway line, and just to have Jorginho. Let's face it, Jorginho is not the biggest, physical presence when it comes to a defensive footballer. So I was quite surprised, and in the end, that's what cost us. But I'm sure Thomas Tuchel will look at that and rectify it, and in the next game, make sure someone sits at the back and, covers for Jorginho or sits behind the two centre midfielders, because I don't think that would ever be happening again if, in a football game after it's happened once.
Yeah, it's such a big risk to take, because we do see these mistakes occasionally happen, and it's such a simple thing to rectify. Just leave an extra man back from the corners. George, obviously going forward, coming into a hectic Christmas period, etc. How concerned are you again that poor finishing has cost us the 3 points? It happened against Burnley last time out, particularly at Stamford Bridge. It was a familiar story last season as well, and it's one that doesn't really seem to be rectifying itself. Obviously, Lukaku was seen as the answer. In fairness to him, he's not had enough game time, etc. When he has played, he's done pretty well. Obviously, been out with injury for quite a while now. We saw him get a few minutes yesterday. How vital is it that we get him up to speed? Because as good as these other guys are, the finishing, the end product from a lot of these players is woeful, really, isn't it?
It's probably something that Chelsea need to work on. Like you said, I think De Gea did have a good game in the sticks anyway. He did make some good. I mean, it is a good save from the Hudson-Odoi chance, but you've got to finish it. As simple as that. In games with such fine margins at the highest level, you might not get that chance again. And certainly that was probably the only clear-cut one that you can remember. Rudiger hitting the bar from distance, but he was just going for a pot shot there, and Rudiger missing at the end as well. You probably want it to fall to anyone else but him. If it's Chilwell at the back, it might have gone into the back of the net. But I'm concerned and not in the same. It's a weird one, because I still think we have the quality, and on another day we would have got the winning goal. But I think it's just one of those. They played such a low block, difficult for Chelsea to break down. I think it almost helped that they didn't have Maguire at the back for some weird reason. I think Eric Bailly was quite good, and I don't know. With the goal situation, I think it probably would have been Kante back there. I think we risked it because of Loftus-Cheek's height and physicality in the box, and Jorginho is probably the weakest out of those, so he wouldn't be in the box per se. And if we had Kante back there, I'm sure that he would have been able to recover even if he did do that touch. So that's unfortunate. And like I've said before, I don't think Tuchel's going to be too worried about that, because you can't plan for those sorts of things. I mean, Fernandes just absolutely lofted that ball up, and he's got to try and get it down, because if he lets it bounce, they're going to get onto it as well. So I'm not too concerned, boys. I think lapses of concentration perhaps for the goal, but other than that, I thought we did everything we could to win, and it's just one of those days, unfortunately.
Theo, what do you think we can do to rectify this issue going forward? Because obviously, admittedly, it's not occurring every single game, but it is occurring. It's occurred in 2 games now, and it will probably rear its head again in a few games as we go towards the rest of the season. With Manchester City and Liverpool both looking pretty strong right now. Yes, they've dropped points themselves as well. It's important to remember in games they probably should have won. But what do you think we can do to rectify this? Is it as simple as get Lukaku firing and he'll get the goals, and it doesn't really matter if the others are missing? Or is it a little bit more complex than that for you?
I think it's a balance of getting Lukaku back to fitness. And we have to remember that period, August, September, he was scoring for fun. Then it kind of slowed down a little. So I'm sure that he is a player that's got that elite mentality who wants to score every game, play every game. So I'm sure this Christmas period will suit him as long as he gets maybe a rest every 2 to 3 games. So I think that will definitely help us. Because I did feel there was a lot of pressure on Kai Havertz when him and Werner were injured. But having, both Havertz, Werner and Lukaku fit now will be healthy competition for one another. And I think we've seen now what Werner's capable of doing as a false 9, and it's not his position. We need to play a Lukaku, a Havertz, or even a Pulisic. I think Pulisic against Juventus offered more than Werner against Manchester United at the weekend. So I think it's kind of Tuchel's playing now with different lineups, different players, in those front 3. I think now he needs to realise which are his front 3 that he wants to, keep or play in these big games, and then go from there. But I think I agree with George. I'm not too worried. I just kind of think it's more of a blip, particularly this game and the Burnley one. We have to remember that how clinical we were in the Leicester and Juventus game. We were, scoring for fun at times, 7 goals in 2 games against very good opposition. So I think we need to take, the positives from those 2 games, and also the positives, because there were a few positives against United. The fact that we were so dominant, we had so much possession, we had 15 corners, and just, try to rectify it and see what went wrong. And, we go again on Wednesday against Watford now.
Yeah, I mean, as you touched on, it wasn't necessarily a poor performance. I thought we played pretty well, but again, just a lack of cutting edge in the final third was our downfall. Thomas Tuchel's obviously been outstanding since he's come into the club. I thought yesterday was one of his poorer games in terms of his decision making and his in-game management. That's, for me, he's always been second to none with that since he's come in. I thought yesterday, as George touched on at the top, he waited far too long for the subs. It was almost like his subs were reactionary rather than preventative. You could see that the game was starting to turn a little bit. We needed to switch some players up. I mean, Loftus-Cheek, who we're all big fans of, not one of his better games. And you could see that something needs to change in the front 3, because Werner was ineffective for the entire time he was on the pitch. Ziyech was in and out. Callum Hudson-Odoi likewise. We needed a bit of a switch up. I mean, George, would you agree with me that it was one of Tuchel's poorer games in terms of his in-game management and his substitution and tactics, etc.?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if we're being harsh, I think I don't know what he was waiting for. I think we've spoken a lot on the show about Loftus-Cheek and that going that next level in the big games where he needs to take it by the scruff of the neck and feel like he belongs. And I thought yesterday, again, he almost had a bit of fear and a bit of doubt. Every time he had the ball, he wasn't quite sure what he was supposed to be doing, lost it on several occasions. And it's almost like he gave too much respect to the senior players in the United side and thought he didn't belong. That's the impression I got. Again, just quite a timid game for someone who's got so much to offer and can, bully anyone off the ball and drive forwards. I thought he was poor. Ziyech again. I think Ziyech and Werner physically are just not up to it. I think they get pushed off way too easily off the ball. Again, seem to run out of ideas and a bit reactionary, like you said, Charlie. They should know or anticipate what they're going to do with the ball before they've received it, and they seem very kind of on the go type players. And I just don't know what he was waiting for, particularly when we scored the penalty. I thought then we've got the drive. Let's get some fresh players on Pulisic to really stretch the back line. Get Lukaku on. I mean, we don't know the circumstances. Maybe he always knew that Lukaku had maximum 10 minutes in the tank for him. Didn't want to risk it, and that's fair enough. But for me, I just felt that was an opportunity missed.
Yeah, he did say in afterwards that he played Lukaku for more minutes than he actually wanted him to play. So I mean, Lukaku only played about 10 minutes, including stoppage time. So he's clearly not as fit as we perhaps thought he is. Really, he's probably not ready to play that much football at the moment. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one of his better games, let's be honest, with Tuchel, but he's done so well. I think we can kind of give him a pass here and there for that. Guys, let's move into the player ratings now. I'll just bring it up onto the screen, and we'll get cracking. So obviously we'll start in goal like we always do. Edouard Mendy. I mean, he didn't have a lot to do in this fixture, and he made a couple of saves. I have to say though, Theo, I'll start with you. I thought his distribution was really quite poor yesterday. Not Mendy-like at all. The mistake for obviously giving it straight to Fred. Look, the goal, he can't really do much about it. It's 2v1. All right, you could say he could come out a little bit quicker off his line, but I think that's been quite harsh. But yeah, I thought his distribution was poor and really not one of his better games. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, he was helpless for the goal. And even if he came off his line, Sancho would have squared it to Rashford probably. So there's nothing he could do there. But I do agree he needs to work on his distribution. I talk about this a lot on my podcast because I think he's probably one of the world's best goalkeepers. He's in the top 5 at least. But if he wants to be pushing for that top 3 or even that best goalkeeper in the world's position, he needs to work on his distribution. I think we spoke on last Friday, you and me, Charlie, about how he's rarely made a mistake for Chelsea. Maybe the Everton penalty he gave away. But I do remember, I think he made a very similar blunder against Porto in the Champions League where he just gifted it to one of their strikers. And fortunately for us, they missed the chance. But had he given it to anyone else other than Fred, that's 2-1 to United, or would it have been 2-0? I can't remember when that chance came for them. But he needs to work on his distribution. But then again, he's Mendy. We see what he can do from long range shots and one-to-one. So he kind of if he works on that, he'll be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But I do think it wasn't one of his best games, and we're very fortunate that it fell to Fred. So I'm tempted to give him, I want to say, a 5 or a 6, maybe.
That's what I was going to go with. I think anywhere between a 5 and a 6. I mean, George, you got anything to add on Mendy's performance yesterday?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly, both of you boys. I think distribution is the thing that he needs to work on, and just those lapses of concentration. And other than that, I think it's a 5 or a 6 performance for me. Yeah, boys, I think we'll go a 5.5 for him. I mean, it feels quite harsh because he didn't really do anything that majorly wrong, but yeah, not one of his better games. Moving on to the back 3 then, boys. Obviously, the same back 3 for the 3rd consecutive game now. Getting some continuity there with obviously Chalobah, Thiago Silva and Rudiger. George, I'll come to you first. We'll start with Antonio Rudiger. I personally felt, again, another solid game from him. I don't think any of the back line actually did anything wrong at all, really. I thought they were all played pretty well. I mean, Rudiger, one of these days, that 30-yard shot that he tries every single match is going to go in. Obviously, he rattles the crossbar yesterday, and that one right at the end where he probably should do a lot better. But I mean, on the whole, I thought he was pretty good again yesterday. What did you make of him? Yeah, but I thought the 3 was solid. They didn't have a lot to do, granted, but I think they had to shift the ball a little bit quicker yesterday and be a bit more on their toes because of how quick, certainly at the start, that United pressed from the front. So they had to be pretty sharp, and I just love his drives. When he goes forward, he did a couple yesterday, had the shot. And could have ended up being the hero as well. And I think everyone's still looking at that chance, being like, that would have been an absolute, a highlight reel if he had scored that. The Stamford Bridge would have gone absolutely mental. But so, no, I can't blame any of the defenders. We win the game 1-0 if Jorginho doesn't make the mistake. So I think, again, for all 3 of them, I think you're looking at 7s and 8s across the board for me. But
yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I think I'd probably be giving Rudiger a 7. I mean, Theo, anything to add on Rudiger's performance?
Yeah, I thought it was a very solid performance. He seemed full of confidence. And even that chance that he missed at the very end, if I'm not mistaken, he was the one who won the ball back with an outstretched challenge, moments before. So he almost started it for himself. But he looked very solid. He looked like no one was getting past him. My one criticism of the back 3 would be that, they were all too forward for when Jorginho lost the ball. One of them should maybe taken a decision to stay back. I think Chalobah was the closest one to Jorginho. But then again, they're 3 centre-backs who like to be, they've scored a few goals this season between them. So maybe they thought they'd get a goal from that corner. So can't really blame them.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree, boys. I think Rudiger could slot in with a solid 7. Again, perhaps not one of his best performances, but solid and did everything he really needs to do. Wasn't really caught out defensively at all. Moving on to Thiago Silva, the man who seems to defy age. I thought out of our back three, he was our best defender. I thought he had the best performance yesterday. Really calm on the ball. Obviously wins the penalty. Great defensively, even in one-on-one situations up against Ronaldo as well. He did really well. Theo, I'll start with you this time. I personally give him probably an 8. I thought it was as I touched on, the best in the back three and another top-level performance. What did you make of him yesterday?
I thought it was superb. He made me feel confident watching that game at Stamford Bridge. As you said, he dealt with every Ronaldo, run quite well, and he won ball backs, a few really good challenges. One is the penalty as well, like you mentioned, so got an assist. I think for me, he was our man of the match. I think whatever the highest rating we give today, I think it should go to Thiago Silva. So I'm tempted to say 8 or 8.5. Yeah,
I'd agree. George, anything to add on Silva?
Oh, other than he is turning into, if not he already is, my favourite Chelsea player now, as in not of all time, but in this squad. I love him. 37, and he just makes defending look so easy and sexy, and he's just a great player to watch. I can't speak highly.
I seem to remember you saying to me when we signed him, you were a little bit unsure about it.
Yeah, I was. For me, Brazilian defenders of my era, I think they're quite erratic. That's not their full focus to defend first. I mean, we've seen it with David Luiz and the like. Yes, they've had some absolute legends in the past, but I wasn't convinced of him when he was at PSG and before. So no, fair play. He's proved me wrong in how good he is. So I take it back, and he's definitely my favourite Chelsea player in this squad.
I think he's fast becoming one of the most important players in the lineup as well, and he's one of those that is basically a shoo-in to play pretty much every game, providing he's fit. So it's so great to see, and we've got to be offering him a new contract for next year, even if he doesn't play as much. We just got to tie him down. But I think he'll be happy to stay, and that should be a pretty quick deal to finalise. George, sticking with you, Chalobah, I thought another great game from him. Fantastic to see him now establishing himself in the lineup, getting a consistent run of games in the Champions League as well. And he's really taken his opportunity and shows that he belongs at the highest level.
Yeah, and he's got great tutelage and mentors beside him to do it. So I think credit has to go to both Rudiger and Silva, and obviously club captain Azpilicueta and all the rest of the boys at the back for helping him. But he's taken that opportunity, different to what I know Ruben Loftus-Cheek's possibly got a slightly tougher task because of the players around him, that he has to feel like he has to make an impact in the top third of the pitch. But Chalobah, he's against some quick boys yesterday, and he definitely stayed in the game on his own, and he belonged there 100%. And it's just nice to see him slowly progressing on that right-hand side with Reece James. So long may it continue.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. I mean, Theo, Chalobah, how important has his emergence been this season? It's been a massive plus for us. It's probably going to save us a lot of money on a defender in the transfer market as well.
Really important. He arguably is the reason why we didn't sign Jules Koundé, or we didn't push for that move fully on deadline day. Our performance yesterday, like we saw against Leicester and Juventus, just it was so mature. It was full of confidence, and we're slowly becoming so used to these performances, and we're taking them for granted. And the one thing I'd have liked to see is I do know that he can offer, almost like we saw against Leicester when he put that through ball on the plate for Hakim Ziyech for the third goal. I'd like to see him maybe just drive a bit more up the pitch, allowing maybe Loftus-Cheek to go more forwards. But you have to remember he's a centre back, so we can't ask for the world from him. But very solid from him. I think I'd give him a similar rating to Rudiger, 7 or 7.5.
Yeah, but I think he was slightly better than Rudiger, but not quite as good as Thiago Silva. So I think a 7.5 is fair for him. But yeah, as we've all said, the back three yesterday didn't do anything wrong. They did exactly what they were meant to do. And yeah, they were all really solid. Moving on to right wing back Reece James, one of our standout performers this season. George, I'll come to you again first on this one. Not one of his better games yesterday, but I guess perhaps a victim of the own high standards that he set for himself. But again, I thought he did well defensively, and he was dangerous in that attacking third. Putting good balls into the box just to show there was no one kind of there to make anything of them. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I mean, he can't play 10 out of 10 every game, and all the build up and the hype was on Reece James and his, ability to attack. And I think he's our top goal scorer this season. That's what he said. So just incredible, and it was nice to see him play on the left-hand side for a little bit as well with the in-between crosses. Particularly when Lukaku came on, he nearly set Lukaku up for a header. He just missed it, and his physicality, his crossing ability, his energy that he gives. Again, I can't rate him any less than the defenders already in there. So it's got to be 7.5 for me again from Reece James.
Yeah, I mean, I look, he's not been as good as he has been in previous games, but he can't keep delivering that level of performance week in, week out, assists every time. And again, assists are only as good as the people trying to finish them off. So you can put as many good balls into the box as you like, but if the people at the top end of the pitch aren't converting them, then obviously your performance perhaps doesn't look quite as good as it could have been. But I mean, I thought he was good, solid. I mean, I don't know if he was any better than the back three. I'd be tempted with perhaps a 6.5 for him. But I mean, Theo, anything to add on Reece James?
Yeah, I thought it was a very solid performance. I had a good view of him in that first half because he was on the right-hand stand and I was in West Lower. He bombs forward. He does the job. He bullied Alex Tejas throughout that game. I don't think Alex Tejas even had, touched the ball much. And what's good as well is he looks confident now. He's shooting from quite far. Yes, he missed a few shots, but that's what I want to see. I want to see players shoot. If anything, I feel like Hudson-Odoi, Werner, Ziyech, even Loftus-Cheek don't shoot enough. And I feel like James is the one who's actually, and Rudiger are the ones who are shooting, which is not normal for our centre-backs to be, trying their luck from distance. But yeah, I'd have to agree. I think 6.5 is a little harsh. I thought he was quite, on par with the three centre-backs. So I'm tempted to say 7 or 7.5, but...
All right, we'll meet in the middle then. We'll go with a 7 for James.
God, if Reece James gets 6.5, what on earth's Werner going to get?
Oh, mate, mate, wait till we get there. Werner was
Might be in the minus.
Mate, wouldn't be far from it anyway. Moving on to the other side, Marcus Alonso obviously in for Ben Chilwell. I thought, I've got to be honest, not one of his better games at all. In fairness to him, he's not played a lot of football for Chelsea recently. It's quite hard to come back in and just hit the ground running in a game like this. For the first 10 minutes, he was pretty good. His header set up Callum Hudson-Odoi's opportunity, but you could tell how much we miss Ben Chilwell, and Alonso just doesn't offer the same as what he does, or anywhere near, really, for my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I didn't think he had a great game, to be honest. There wasn't a lot of threat down that left-hand side, and we really missed Ben Chilwell. I mean, Theo, would you agree with that, or do you think I've been a little bit too harsh?
I do think it was a pretty solid, or maybe more average performance from him. I do agree with what George said at the start. I think a lot of fans, often point the finger to Alonso and kind of see him as a scapegoat when things go wrong. But in all honesty, had Chilwell started, I think he would have maybe put in a very similar performance, simply because United just sat back. And look at James, he even struggled to kind of, bomb forward and do what he does best. So I think it's hard pointing the finger to Alonso. But yeah, I think comparing those performances, I do think I'd prefer Chilwell in that position. But I have to agree with what you said, Charlie. He needs he needs 2 or 3 games to really get back into the flow of things, which he will be getting during this Christmas period. But he lacked a bit of match fitness, maybe. So I want to give him maybe I think 5.5 or 6. I think that's a fair. I don't know if you'd agree, George or Charlie.
I think a 5 is probably where I would be at. But George, I mean, what did you make of Alonso? Do you think, do you agree with me and Theo? What do you reckon? Do you think it was a good performance, or he's got to improve quite a lot, really, hasn't he?
No, I thought he was better than 5, boys. I thought, he's coming in a massive game where he hasn't really featured, and he's been a great professional. I think, yes, we can accept that Chilwell is our best left back, but we've got no option now. And I think Alonso does offer different things that Chilwell doesn't. Certainly delivery is one. I think for set pieces too. I think he's better in the corners than Chilwell. I think free kicks, he's a danger. And let's not forget, when Chilwell was out of all sorts, Alonso was all guns blazing at the start of the season. So I think he can offer things different in different games. I just think, like you said, I think sometimes the pace, or if he's in front of goal, I think you'd probably prefer Ben Chilwell. But and defensively as well, you'd probably say, because he hasn't got the pace. But I think he was better than a 5. I think that is a tad harsh for someone who's, we only conceded 1 goal and it was nothing to do with him. So.
And just on that, just on the left wing back position, George, I haven't had the chance to ask you this. Just very briefly, do you think we need to be looking at bringing in another player in that position in the January window? Because obviously Chilwell's definitely missing the next 6 weeks, the rest of this year. He could be out for the rest of the season at a worst case scenario. I mean, even if he does come back in the new year, he's going to take a bit of time to get up to speed again. I mean, do you feel we perhaps need to bring someone in that position?
Perhaps, but it might be what you said at the top of the show, where if worst comes to worst and he gets suspended or injured, you play Aspi there, and we just have to deal with it. We've still got Christensen who can fill in at a centre back if we lose one of those. Yeah, it's a difficult one for me because again, if they're both fit, it's very difficult to bring in a player like that to basically say, well, you're third choice left back, which is very difficult. I think you're going to struggle to match the quality. We're blessed really to have two fantastic left backs at the club. So for me, I think just stay put, and worst comes to worst, we play Aspi there.
Or I guess we could also play Saunaghez there, and we could an emergency play Hudson-Odoi there as well if we really had to. I think, unless there's an amazing deal that can be done in January, I think we can probably get through with what we've got. But it is a decision that the club will have to take. I do think Alonso might move on in the summer, potentially. We've obviously still got Emerson on loan as well, etc. But Alonso, all right, boys. We'll go with a 5.5.
Oh, blimey!
Well, mate, he wasn't as good as James, so.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
5.5. I'm moving on to the midfield. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, guys. We'll start with him. Getting the nod in a big game. That was kind of, we've all said that was kind of the next step for him to take to be trusted to start in these big games. I've got to be honest. We're all big fans of Ruben. I thought this was a big missed opportunity for him yesterday. He just didn't take the game by the scruff of the neck. I don't think he really seized the opportunity to the best of his ability. And like you touched on, George, earlier, he seemed to look a bit nervous. I know that United packing the midfield was not to the best of... made his job a lot harder. He likes to pick the ball up on the half turn and drive past players, etc. When it's so congested in there, it does make it quite hard. But, he wasn't taking shots on like he normally does, kind of in and around the edge of the area. And, I think I'm not sure if the occasion perhaps got the better of him. But, for me, I just think it was a missed opportunity for him to show what he can do in a big game, having been trusted to start. I mean, Theo, we'll come to you first. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do kind of agree it was not his best performance. I still feel like he's almost being played out of position in that centre mid role. He's more of an attacking midfielder. Occasionally, if Jorginho sits back, that can allow him to drive forward like he likes to do. But I just want to see him shoot more. I just know he has it in his locker to score goals. We saw that in the Europa League season in 2019. He can score goals, but he just seems almost too shy to shoot, or he wants to play it to Hudson-Odoi or Ziyech, whether that's coming with nerves or giving the United experienced players too much respect and credit, like you said. But I feel like you could say it's a chance miss, but I don't think Kante or Kovacic will be fit enough for Watford, or even I think our weekend fixture. So I think he will start again on Wednesday, or maybe even potentially could be a Barkley or a Saunaghez. But I still think Tuchel really trusts him, really rates him. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And I just know that there's more to come from him and his better performances. But I still think it's a bit harsh saying it's one of his worst performances. But I guess it's similar to James. We're getting used to just really quality, Loftus-Cheek cameos or performances that we expect him to deliver at his best. But I still think, he put in maybe a 6 out of 10 performance potentially.
Yeah, I think that's quite fair. I mean, George, anything else to add? Do you feel it's a slight missed opportunity for him?
I do, yeah. I think when the commentators are talking about Scott McTominay being man of the match, and you've got a midfielder for him, Fred and Matic, you really feel like Loftus-Cheek needs to step up and be like, I'm better than these boys. I can take the game, and I completely agree with Theo. Though I think maybe the indecisiveness comes from the fact that he's not quite sure what his role is in midfield, whether he's supposed to be the cautious, play side to side and not give away the ball, or whether he's allowed to venture forward completely license free. And he's kind of in between the two. So, I would agree with Theo. I think 6 out of 10. I don't think it was awful. It's a big game. I don't think it's an opportunity in terms of he'll probably start against Watford again. But we're just so frustrated, aren't we? Because we know the quality he has, and we just want to see him step up to the big game.
Yeah, I mean, Theo, I'll come to you. How much do you think we missed Kante yesterday? Do you think that was a big miss?
Yeah, I think so. I think yesterday would have been the perfect game for Kante. Like George said, I think had Kante started, we would have conceded because he would have sat back, on that corner on the halfway line, and he would not have probably controlled that better, and he would have allowed Sanchez to snatch that ball off him. So I think arguably, had Kante started, we would have probably won the game and snatched all 3 points.
Yeah, I think that could be. I think that's quite a fair thing to say. It's just, Kante would have been perfect for that game. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. Unfortunately, his fitness is not what it is at the moment. Simon said United weren't that great. They weren't that great. I mean, I'm baffled that I have to say, boys, that Scott McTominay was man of the match. I don't think he did anything. I mean, I know George quite likes him as a player. I think he's so average. And as the Chelsea fans were saying, he's just a shit Billy Gilmore, which is quite enjoyable. But yeah, I just think he won a few headers, and I just think it's that Sky bias with Man United. I think Thiago Silva would have been far more deserving of that. So yeah, I do agree with that. But moving on, Ruben, I think a 6 out of 10 is pretty fair for him. Jorginho, I mean, it's difficult because apart from the mistake, which was obviously a massive mistake and it cost us the goal and possibly the 3 points in the end, I actually thought he had a really good game, which makes it all the more frustrating. I mean, I thought he controlled it really well, good passing, etc., dictated the tempo of the game, like we see so often from him. George, what did you make of his performance? Because the mistake makes me want to give him a bit of a lower rating, but he actually played really well.
Yeah, he did. And you've also got to look at the reaction. It takes some bollocks after doing a miss like that to then take. I know he's the penalty taker, but imagine if he missed that penalty as well. I mean, it would have been a nightmare. So
he missed his last 2 for Italy.
Yeah, so credit to him for taking it and thinking, at least rectify the mistake, and he had the calmness to do that. And yeah, I agree, Charlie. I think he had a great game. I think it's so harsh for the mistake because anyone can make it. It's such an incredibly high ball that he literally cannot make a fraction error. If he mistouches it, the two that press are going to get it. So it has to be inch perfect. Like I've said before, I don't think he could have even let it drop because again, the pace, he would have get caught out. So he had to try, and it's not come off. And it's one of those things. I mean, I'm not going to blame him for that. He might win the Ballon d'Or tonight. So who knows? But I think, yeah, I agree, Charlie. I think he had a good performance. I think you have to downgrade him slightly just for the mistake, but not by much. I still think it was a solid performance from Jorginho yesterday.
I mean, George, just last thing on him. What would you make of Thomas Tuchel's explanation afterwards that he was kind of blinded a bit by how bright the lights were? I mean, I don't know how bright the floodlights are at Stamford Bridge, really, but would you give any credence to that kind of explanation?
Well, I know it's a bit of a shock, Charlie, but I've never actually played at Stamford Bridge, so I wouldn't know. All I'd say is it could be a factor. I think the height of the ball doesn't help. I think the fact that he definitely saw the two coming for him, so he felt a bit under pressure that he had to go there. And like we've touched on, I think if Kante was even on the halfway line with him, he could possibly recover. And as Theo said, he's not the quickest, so it's not as if he makes the bad touch, he's going to recover. So it's one of those things.
I mean, Theo, anything to add on Jorginho?
I thought after his mistake, like George said, his reaction was amazing. He was arguably our best player in that period after the mistake. He was putting some beautiful balls to our wing backs, who are our biggest threat at the moment. So it's kind of a weird one because he cost us 2 points, but at the same time, his reaction after almost got us the point, I want to say. And it takes a lot of balls to step up and take that penalty, given how the game's unfolded and how his record from the spot in his last couple of games for Italy. So it's I could literally give him anything between a 4 and a 7. I feel like any of those would be a fair kind of.
I probably would have given him a 7.5 for his performance without the mistake, but I think with the mistake, I think a 6.5 is probably
seems fair to me.
Is probably fair, right, lads? Let's rattle through the front three now. Hakim Ziyech. I see on Twitter he gets quite a lot of. He always is the first one to be criticised quite often. I've got to be honest. I actually thought he was perhaps our best attacker yesterday. I actually think he did pretty well. I thought he was dangerous on the ball. He presses well from the front. He plays some nice passes, particularly that reverse pass for Christian Pulisic to set up that really good chance at the end. And I think he's coming into a bit of form now for Chelsea. Obviously not what we're all expecting of him when he signed from Ajax, but credit where credit's due. In the last few games, he has been quite good. And I do think, as I said, he was probably our best attacker yesterday. I mean, Theo, you were there. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I kind of agree. His body language is slightly better now. He looks a bit less lazy. He was defending quite well yesterday, which I was impressed with. My one worry of him, I think he's just too reliant on his left foot. There were positions where you could have, you wanted him to shoot with his right, but he just, switched it to his left foot and then end up passing it or crossing it, which just didn't really work out in the end. But I'm glad he's starting. I'm glad, he's getting the manager's backing and confidence now. But my one thing that annoys me is I would have liked him to come off earlier, maybe just because of how the game was going. So that prevents me from giving him maybe more than a 7 or 7.5.
I mean, George, what did you make of Hakim Ziyech? Obviously, a bit hit and miss his Chelsea career so far. He has come into a bit of form, as we've touched on. As I said, I thought he was perhaps our best attacker yesterday. I mean, what did you make of him?
I don't know. I may have been watching a different game. I know he recovered the ball quite well a few times, but I thought he was got a bit schooled, a bit bullied. It's difficult when you play against a low block, and I agree he's probably too reliant on his left foot. But again, he's frustrating because I want it to work, and you see some of the things that he has done in the past and for Chelsea, and he's got the talent there. I think sometimes he's a bit of a passenger, gives away the ball far too cheaply because he's not physical enough, and I don't know. I just don't trust him whenever he's got the ball to do something with it. For me, so I may have been watching. I don't know. I mean, maybe because I've got that kind of critical head on him now. I just always look at the bad bits and not see the good bits in him. But yeah, for me, it was an average performance yesterday from him. For me,
to be honest, boys, I think a 6.5 is probably fair. He was by no means our worst attacker, and I think he did offer. I feel he offered a reasonable amount yesterday. But yeah, 6.5 for Hakim Ziyech. Moving on to the other side, Callum Hudson-Odoi. Theo, I'll come to you first again. I thought another solid performance. Obviously, in his most consistent run of form for Chelsea, I think that was his 8th or 9th start on the spin now. So Thomas Tuchel does obviously really trust him. He even acknowledged himself afterwards, Callum, that he had to be scoring that goal, that opportunity yesterday. Put it out on his socials, which I think is quite big of him to do. Doesn't have to do that at all. But again, I thought he looks dangerous. But yeah, the one big opportunity he had, Theo, he just didn't take it. And we can't expect all assets of his game to be like near top at 21 years of age. But the one aspect that's got to improve is his finishing.
I'd agree. It was a lively performance, but that finish, it was. He should be scoring now. You could say, also say that it was a brilliant save from David De Gea if you want to play devil's advocate. But I think the fact that chance came so early in the game, maybe he felt almost unprepared, or we as fans thought, we'd be getting plenty more chances like this, so we let him off the hook. But now looking at the bigger picture and how the game unfolded, he should have scored, and we would have definitely, we would have killed the game afterwards. But I'm glad he's starting. Similarly to Ziyech, I'm glad, he's playing based on form and merit. But I think wasn't his best game. Similar to Ziyech, I think 6.5. I don't know if you'd agree, George.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say to that. I think I agree. Just finishing needs to be better, but he's in form. He plays with a swagger and a confidence, and again, it will come. So I was happy with the performance yesterday.
I've got to be honest, because I don't think he was better than Ziyech. I think a 6 is probably fair for Callum. I think he was just above average, really, for me. Right, moving on. Timo Verna. I think we've probably all got slightly different opinions of him. I've got to be honest, boys. I thought it was absolutely dreadful yesterday. Although I'm sorry, I don't like to criticise players, but when criticism is due, I think it's fair that we give our opinions and dish it out, just like when players do well. I'm sorry, I'm done with Timo Verna now as a Chelsea player. I've got to be honest. I'll support every player that wears the shirt, but I'm finished with it now. He needs to be sold. As a number 9, he offers absolutely nothing. I mean, Tuchel himself even said Werner is not a number 9, so why is he playing down the middle in such an important football match? I don't understand that. For me, he's only effective against a handful of opposition. Against teams that are a high line, you've got the space to run in behind. Great. Not many teams play a high line. Against a low block, you might as well have 10 men on the pitch. He just like it's not his game. He doesn't hold the ball up well. He doesn't bring other players into play, and his finishing's dreadful as well. And this is not just a reactionary view based on yesterday. This is a large sample size of football matches now. This is best part of 18 months, almost 2 seasons, and nothing's improved. You've seen players that have improved a lot since Thomas Tuchel has come in, likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, likes of Ruben, likes of Ben Chilwell, Reece James, have all pushed on their game a lot. Even maybe Hakim Ziyech has improved his game quite a lot as well. Timo Verna hasn't improved at all since Thomas Tuchel come in, and that's a big concern for me. And I know it sounds harsh, but we need to cut our losses next season because this guy doesn't bring anything to the team at all. Theo, perhaps I'm being a bit harsh, but that's just how I feel about it now. Is your patience running a bit thin with Timo now?
No, I do agree. Like it's been a year and a half now that he's been wearing a Chelsea shirt. I think it's now where Chelsea fans are slowly starting to lose their patience. They want to be seeing results on the pitch. They want to be seeing performances unlike the performance of yesterday. I don't like seeing him at number 9, if I'm honest, in that number 9 role. He just drifts too much to the side and then ends up, there's no one in the middle, which is something Lukaku would never do. Lukaku would just stay in a penalty box and almost, create chances for himself within the penalty box, or be more of a goal poacher like we saw with Giroud last season and just wait for his chance, whether it's a header or just a tap in, which Werner will never do. And we saw in that Juventus game, but I was lucky. These Juventus players were tired, and in the final minutes of that game, they left him unmarked. But he just drifts too much to the side and then doesn't know what to do. He looks very hesitant. He looks clumsy as well. I do love him. I think, I want it to work, but I do agree it's, now 1 year and a half, 2 years where we're slowly going to lose our patience. But I just don't think the system, this Tuchel system and lineup is suited to him either. He should be that player that sits maybe behind the striker rather than, be that false number 9 or even one of the wingers. So it's kind of, I don't know, I'm a bit lost with how he fits into the system, especially with Havertz fit, Lukaku fit, Ruben, should be playing higher up the pitch. Barkley, who's, got a point to prove now and should be starting games. So I'm a bit lost as well.
George, what anything to add on Timo?
I hear what you're saying. I get the points. I think he does a lot of things that probably go unnoticed, like the press and the work rate. He gives 110%, which I know sometimes is not enough because you have to do your job, but you'll be surprised at how many players don't do that and how many that Tuchel can rely on to do that for the whole match. He gives it 110%, closes down space, and I get that's not enough, but you look at the problems that Manchester United have about just getting players motivated and running and chasing down balls. He does that, and he goes again and again and again, misses chance off chance, but he's there. He's in the right positions again, just can't finish. We've seen bits of brilliance when he was with Frank Lampard when he was playing there. I agree with Theo. I'd like to see him just in a maybe even playing with Lukaku. I don't know if that would ever be an option for Thomas Tuchel, but he played a very integral part in our Champions League run. So I agree. I think time's running out for him now. I can't be so critical of Ziyech and not Werner because it's not fair to just cushion Werner just for the sake of it. But he has been in and out the team, and we can't say he hasn't had his chance to get to stake a claim. But give him a little bit more time, boys.
Just a
little bit.
I'm not sure. I think when you're criticising players, you've got to use that same criticism across the board. You can't just kind of Ziyech, dreadful, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but look at Torres. How long do we give Torres?
Yeah, but I just think with Timo, it's just not happening, and the signs aren't even there for me to suggest that it might happen. It doesn't look like happening at all.
Well, he's got the most chalked off goals in.
But that's useless.
Well, it is and it isn't.
I just feel that Theo, do you agree? For me, he doesn't even look like improving at all, does he? This doesn't look like rectifying himself. It doesn't suddenly look like come the turn of the year he's suddenly going to put 10 or 15 goals in for the second half of the season. He just doesn't look like improving at all.
Last season, I thought give him a full pre-season under Tuchel. Give him fans at Stamford Bridge that will sing his name and back him, which he's having this season. And 4 or 5 months in now, and it's kind of not really that big of an improvement of last season. It's the same kind of old Timo Verna we saw in 2020 and 2021. So I do want to give him more time. I think I want to give him the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then should it still not work out, then, serious questions need to be asked next summer.
Oh, here it comes. What are you giving him then?
I mean, what do you boys think? I mean, for me, I thought he was I've got to be honest, I thought he was our worst player yesterday.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Boys, I think I'm going to have to go with a 4. I mean, what do you lads think?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think that's about fair.
It just wasn't good enough. And another opportunity that's passed him by again. But yeah, I mean, for me, he shouldn't be starting against Watford on Wednesday, but we'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, the subs, they were all too late to really do anything. I thought Pulisic looked quite sharp when he came on. Mount is an interesting one. I'm not really sure what's happened to him. I mean, not a lot of time yesterday to influence that game or do anything. But I mean, the last few games, he's not been picked for the lineup. I don't know if he's not fully fit after those dental issues. I think obviously he played a lot of football last season, a full Euros campaign as well. It's really caught up on him a little bit. But yeah, the subs not much time to influence any decision making. But yeah, guys, that's our player ratings there. Obviously, drop your thoughts in the comments below or in the chat if you agree or disagree. It's not all doom and gloom though, boys. We are still top of the league, 1 point clear. Move on to Watford Wednesday night. We can't really afford any more slip ups. But I mean, if we were offered this position at the start of the season to be top heading into December, we would have certainly taken it. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining us. If you tuned in live, you're going to watch it back. We hope you enjoy it. George, thanks for joining me as always. Theo, thanks a lot. Guys, make sure you check out Theo's socials and his podcast. I'll link them all in the description below. Make sure you do smash like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 200 subscribers now, so every subscriber helps. So please do that. And we'll catch you in the Watford preview tomorrow. Cheers, boys.
Yes.